Have you ever looked at the world around you and felt that there was something more? Something beyond the surface of things? A quiet feeling, like a whisper in the wind, telling you that reality is far deeper than what your eyes can see. Heindel begins by reminding us that the visible world is only a fragment of a much vaster reality. What we see, the trees, the sky, the faces of loved ones, are but the outer garments of life. Behind them lies something profound, the invisible worlds, teeming with forces, beings, and energies that shape everything we know. And when we remain unaware of these worlds, when we deny their existence, we remain asleep. Asleep to what we truly are, and to what life can become. But when we begin to grasp the laws that govern both the visible and invisible, something inside us stirs. A subtle awakening begins. Heindel explains that the universe is made of interpreting worlds, each with its own level of substance, each obeying precise, unchanging laws, and yet we live our days as though only one world, the physical, exists. We forget that we are travelers in a great house with many rooms, most of which remain closed to us. But the moment we begin to realize this truth, that matter is not the only reality, we are no longer trapped. Our consciousness begins to rise, like a mist clearing at dawn. You see, according to Heindel, the physical world is but the densest of several worlds. Beyond it lies the etheric region, the desire world, and the world of thought. Each is more subtle than the one before it, and though unseen, these worlds are active, vibrant, alive. They influence everything we feel, think, and do. Imagine for a moment that your thoughts, your hopes, your quiet prayers do not vanish into nothingness. They move, like waves in an unseen ocean. They have color, shape, sound, imperceptible to our eyes, yet real and radiant in those higher worlds. Heindel describes how ignorance of these laws leaves us like blind men, groping in the dark. But when we learn these laws, we begin to walk with eyes wide open. No longer are we victims of fate, tossed like leaves in the wind. Instead, we become conscious participants in a living cosmos. Think about that. What if right now, around you, there are energies responding to your every thought and emotion? What if your every act is not isolated, but part of a vast interplay of forces that echo beyond time? This is what Heindel calls us to recognize. And once we do, we can never quite fall back to sleep. The world changes, though it appears the same. You see deeper, you hear the unspoken, you feel life moving in currents invisible to others. Heindel also speaks of the law of consequence, what others might call karma. But here, it takes on a more intimate meaning. It is not a cold, external law that punishes all rewards, but a quiet force that brings balance, harmony, and learning. Every thought, every word, every deed, like seeds sown in a field, returns to us in time, bearing fruit. And when we begin to grasp this, we start waking up. But it takes courage to wake up, to accept that what we think and feel shapes the very world around us. Yet in this awakening lies our freedom. Heindel speaks too of the law of rebirth, the idea that life is a school. Think of that for a moment. If this is true, then nothing we experience is without meaning. Every joy, every heartache, every struggle, part of a grand design, leading us onward, upward, toward wisdom and love. And once you know this, once you really know this, not just in your mind but in your heart, something within you begins to change. You start to live with purpose, with a sense of calm that others might not understand. You realize that every day is a step on a longer path. And the troubles that once seemed overwhelming begin to soften, to make sense. You no longer fight against the waves because you see the ocean for what it is. Heindel tells us that awakening to these laws is like waking from a long dream. At first, we may feel disorientated. The world, as we know it, begins to shift. But then comes a deeper peace, a sense that we are part of something vast and beautiful. The stars above, the flowers blooming in spring, the quiet smile of a stranger. Suddenly, all these things hold a deeper meaning. You realize that you are never alone, that you are held in the arms of great laws that guide you, even when you stumble, and in learning to trust these laws, you begin to trust life itself. Heindel does not speak as a distant philosopher, but as a gentle guide, reminding us that there is so much more to us than we know. We are more than bodies, more than fleeting thoughts. We are eternal spirits, moving through worlds visible and invisible, learning, growing, becoming. And perhaps this is what it means to truly wake up, to see the world not as a place of chaos and chance, but as a living, breathing tapestry, woven with love, purpose, and wisdom. When you begin to see that, when you begin to live as though every action echoes in eternity, you step into a new life, a life where even the smallest act of kindness matters, where even your quietest thought is a thread in the great weaving of the cosmos. So if you have felt that stirring within, that sense that life is more than what we've been told, if you've looked at the stars and wondered if something beyond is calling to you, know that you are not alone. And as you take that step, you may begin to notice what was always there but unseen. Heindel draws back the veil on these mysteries in a way that gently stirs us from our sleep. He does not merely catalogue the differences between mineral, plant, animal, and man. No, he takes us by the hand and invites us to see that these differences are not accidental, but part of a divine law, one that once seen begins to awaken us to our higher destiny. Heindel speaks first of the mineral kingdom, the foundation of the physical world, a world of stillness, of form without inner motion. Minerals possess a dense physical body, but are without the spark of life, feeling, or thought. They are governed by the law of form and structure, shaped by forces they do not know. Yet in their silence, they obey laws older than time, laws that hold the planets in orbit and shape the mountains and the seas. Once we begin to see this, that even the mineral world, seemingly lifeless, moves in harmony with cosmic law, we begin to wake to a grander picture. Nothing in existence is outside the reach of these laws. Nothing is truly random. And in that realization comes the first stirring of awareness. If such harmony governs even the stones beneath our feet, might there not be a higher law that governs us? From minerals, Heindel guides us to the plant kingdom. The plants, unlike minerals, have life. They take root, they grow, they respond to the sun and rain. They possess what Heindel calls the vital body, an etheric counterpart to their physical form. The vital body allows them to live, to transform the elements of the earth into the green of leaves and the fragrance of flowers. Yet plants, though alive, do not feel. They do not perceive the world around them as animals do. They stand between the mineral and the animal, half asleep in the arms of nature, responding only to the rhythm of light and dark, warmth and cold. When we see the plants in this way, not merely as decorations of the earth, but as beings moving to the law of growth and life force, we begin to sense that there are levels of existence, levels of awakening. The plant is more awake than the mineral, but not yet fully conscious. And then Heindel takes us to the animal kingdom, creatures that, like us, possess physical and vital bodies, but also something more, the desire body. With this, animals feel. They move with purpose. They suffer, they rejoice. They are driven by instincts and emotions. They sense the world in ways that minerals and plants cannot. Yet animals, for all their feelings, do not reason. They cannot reflect on their existence or ask who they are. They live in a dream of sensation and instinct. But even that dream is governed by laws. Laws of attraction and repulsion, of seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. And here Heindel opens our eyes a little wider. He shows us that as we move from mineral to plant to animal, there is a progression, an unfolding of consciousness. It is as if nature is waking up step by step, and with that vision, we begin to ask, where do we as human beings fit into this great chain? It is here that Heindel brings us to the fourth kingdom, humanity. Unlike the animal, we possess not only a physical body, a vital body and a desire body, but also the mind. And it is the mind that allows us to reason, to reflect, to choose. The mind is the key that unlocks the door to conscious spiritual growth. Yet, Heindel is clear. Though we possess the mind, we are not yet fully awake. We stand at a threshold. We have within us the tools for great understanding, but most of us still live half asleep to the deeper realities of existence. We are caught in the dream of material life, much like the animal is caught in its dream of sensation. But here is where the awakening begins. Once we understand that there are laws governing the four kingdoms, that life is not random but unfolds by a precise order, we begin to see that our struggles, our hopes, our pains are part of a greater plan. Heindel tells us that in the mineral kingdom, form is paramount, perfect, enduring. In the plant kingdom, life begins but without sensation. In the animal, feeling awakens but without full self-awareness. And in man, thought is born, and with it, the potential to master life itself. Do you see the thread? Do you feel how each kingdom is a step on a ladder? Once we see this, we realize that we are not at the end of evolution, we are in the midst of it. And once we know this, something inside us stirs. We begin to ask, if I have mind now, what comes next? What is my next awakening? And Heindel gives us the answer. Beyond thought lies the spirit, the true self, the eternal part of us that can only awaken when we begin to live by the higher laws. These higher laws are not imposed from outside. They are the laws of love, of service, of selfless action, the laws that govern the spirit's growth. To know that there are four kingdoms is to know that there is purpose in life, and to know that is to begin waking up. It is as though we have been walking through life with half-closed eyes, and now, slowly, they begin to open. We start to see that every creature, every blade of grass, every stone is our brother on this great journey, that the laws shaping their existence are shaping ours too. And perhaps the greatest awakening of all is to realize that as humans, we have the power to rise above instinct, above blind emotion. We can choose. We can direct our lives in accordance with the spiritual laws that govern all being. We can choose kindness over cruelty, truth over falsehood, love over indifference. Heindel shows us that in knowing these laws, we take the first steps on the path of conscious evolution. We move from being mere products of nature to becoming co-creators with the divine. But he also reminds us, awakening is not easy. It requires effort, struggle, and often pain. Yet it is the most glorious journey a soul can undertake. When we look at the world through the eyes of the Rosicrucian teachings, we see every experience, every joy, every sorrow is a lesson designed to awaken us to higher truths. And once we know this, once we really know it, in the quiet of our hearts, our lives change. We no longer seek escape from our trials, but seek the meaning within them. We begin to live with a calm purpose, knowing that even the hardest days are steps toward greater light. So Heindel gently shows us that when we understand the four kingdoms, we see that we are part of a vast symphony of life, each note rising higher, each life moving toward greater consciousness. And once you see that, once you really see it, you cannot go back to sleep. Something within you has stirred. You begin to walk a new path, a path of awakening, a path that leads not only to understanding but to wisdom, to love, to freedom. So my friend, if you have felt that stirring, if these words have reached into some quiet part of your soul, know that you are not alone. Know that you are waking up, and this is only the beginning. Yet, even as the quiet knowing begins to settle within you, there comes a moment that visits every life. When a deeper question rises from the depths of the soul, it arrives softly, often in the stillness of night, when the world grows quiet and the weight of existence feels heaviest. From the perspective of the Rosicrucians, there are laws, ancient, invisible, yet unfailing, that govern the unfolding of human life and evolution. And once you come to know these laws, once you begin to see how they shape your very existence, something extraordinary begins to stir within you, a waking up, gentle yet profound. Heindel speaks of this awakening not as a sudden burst of light, but as a gradual dawning. He unveils how human life is not a random series of accidents, but a carefully guided journey of growth, a journey shaped by memory, activity, and soul development. Heindel tells us that man, as we know him today, is not the finished product of creation. We are beings in the midst of an evolutionary climb, a climb that reaches beyond the physical form we wear. For beneath this flesh and bone is something immortal, something that stretches across lives, gathering experience, learning, evolving. Think for a moment of all the experiences you've had, the joy of a loving embrace, the pain of loss, the quiet moments of reflection. According to Heindel, these are not mere episodes to be lived and forgotten. They are the very building blocks of your soul. Every moment is etched into the invisible fabric of what he calls the seed atom, a tiny but immortal center that holds within it the record of all that you are and all that you have been. The Rosicrucians say that during waking life, we are like gardeners planting seeds through our actions, thoughts, and feelings. But the fruit of those seeds does not always ripen in the same season. Some take years, some lifetimes to bloom. And herein lies the first great law, the law of consequence. The law that ensures every cause has its effect. Nothing is lost. Nothing is wasted. Every deed, every word, every thought shapes the future. But this is not a cold or punishing law. It is a law of growth. Heindel explains such experience we pass through is a lesson carefully designed to awaken latent powers within us. Sorrow, though bitter, teaches compassion. Struggle, though harsh, teaches strength. And joy, though fleeting, teaches gratitude. Yet how do we carry these lessons forward? How does the soul remember what the brain forgets? This is where the law of memory enters, not the surface memory that recalls names and dates, but the deep memory of the soul, the kind that shapes instinct, character, and conscience. Heindel describes that at the close of each life there is a gathering of all experiences, much like a gardener at harvest time. This panoramic view of life, seen just before death, is not merely a reflection but a vital process where the soul absorbs the essence of all it has passed through. And what cannot be learned in one life awaits another. Thus the soul grows, not in a single bound, but step by step, as the flower reaches slowly for the sun. But what is the aim of all this? Why this endless cycle of experience and rebirth? The Rosicrucians answer: to awaken self-consciousness and soul power. Heindel explains that life itself is an immense workshop, where the spirit labors to clothe itself in wisdom and love, to transform the raw material of experience into the gold of understanding. And here, another law reveals itself, the law of evolution. But not merely the evolution of bodies, as modern science would say, but the evolution of consciousness. Each life is a step upward, on the spiral of being. Heindel speaks of life as a battlefield, where forces meet, the higher self and the lower, the spirit and the flesh. And though the struggle may weary us, it is necessary. For without resistance, no strength is built. Without night, there can be no dawn. And perhaps most profound is what he says about the nature of soul growth. It is not given, but earned. Each noble thought, each selfless act, each moment when love triumphs over anger, these are the silent victories that build the soul's wings. But Heindel warns of a great sleep that threatens humanity, the sleep of materialism, of forgetting our spiritual nature. He says that many live as though this world is all there is, never questioning, never seeking, and so they drift, lifetime after lifetime, until sorrow or loss shakes them awake. Yet once you see these laws, once you truly grasp that your life is a thread in a vast tapestry woven by your own hands, something shifts inside you. The bitterness of suffering softens into understanding. The restlessness of ambition finds peace in purpose. And the loneliness of the heart recognizes itself as part of a great soul family, journeying together toward the light. When you begin to know these laws, you awaken to the realization that you are a co-worker in the grand design of life, not a pawn moved by fate, but a soul shaping its destiny through every choice. You realize that every kindness you give, every wrong you right, is an investment in your own soul's treasure, and that the universe, vast as it is attentive to every act of love. And so, as Heindel says, we are here to learn, not merely to survive or to take, but to give, to grow, to become radiant with the light of spirit. And though we stumble, though we forget, the laws remain. Patiently they guide us back to the path. What then is waking up? It is seeing that nothing is meaningless, that your life has a purpose, written in the stars and carved in the silence of your soul. It is understanding that even now, in this very moment, you are being shaped for something greater. Once you know these laws, you no longer ask, why me? But instead, what is life teaching me now? You begin to see how every meeting, every trial, every joy is a page in the book of your soul. And as you wake, a calm takes hold, a calm that knows you are never alone in this vast, mysterious journey. So when the nights are dark and questions haunt you, remember that Heindel teaches, you are not adrift, you are not forgotten. You are a spirit on a magnificent journey, guided by laws older than time, loved by a wisdom deeper than the sea. Yet even as this quiet knowing begins to take root, there are moments when life grows heavy again, moments when the weight of existence presses so deeply upon us that the old questions return, sharper than before. Heindel gives voice to these silent questions, and he opens a window to two profound laws that shape all human destiny: the law of consequence and the law of rebirth. As Heindel gently reveals, understanding these laws is not merely an intellectual exercise, it is an awakening, a rising from sleep into the deeper reality that underlies all we see. For many, life seems chaotic, unfair even. Some are born into comfort, others into hardship. Some commit acts of cruelty and walk away untouched, while others live upright lives and meet misfortune. To the unawakened eye, it appears as though there is no design to the pattern, yet Heindel tells us otherwise. He shows us that life is governed by exact and unwavering principles. The law of consequence, often known as cause and effect, ensures that every action, every word, and even every thought is recorded and returned to its maker, not as punishment, but as a necessary step toward learning and growth. The universe, he says, is a place of perfect justice, though we may not always see it. Events in our current life are linked in invisible threads to the deeds of lives before. What we encounter is never random. The pain we feel may be the echo of pain we once caused, and the kindness we receive may be the fruit of seeds long forgotten. And here, Heindel draws a sharp distinction. This is not a doctrine of punishment, but of evolution. The purpose of experiencing the result of our actions is to develop wisdom, compassion, and understanding, to forge the soul in the fires of experience. Heindel makes it clear that the soul cannot learn all that it must in one short life. The lessons of existence are vast, and so the law of rebirth extends to us the grace of return, of continuing our journey through successive lives on earth. Each life is like a chapter in a greater story, bound to what came before and shaping what will come after. Once we understand this, life begins to make sense in a new way. No longer do we ask why some are burdened while others are free. We begin to see that the soul carries within it the story of many lifetimes, and what is experienced now is part of a vast unfolding. The rich man and the beggar, the powerful and the weak, they are not fixed in their stations for all eternity. They are travelers on a shared road, moving through roles shaped by their own pasts, learning what they have yet to master. This knowledge awakens a deep sense of responsibility, for if we have shaped our present by our past, then we are, even now, shaping our future by the choices we make. Heindel tells us that understanding rebirth and consequence leads to a moral and spiritual awakening, unlike any other. When we know that we will meet again, the fruits of every seed we plant, we begin to plant more carefully. We learn that every act of cruelty will return to us, not for revenge, but so that we may understand the suffering we have caused and grow beyond it. We realize that every act of love creates beauty that will return to embrace us in times to come. Yet Heindel does not stop with this moral insight. He takes us deeper into the workings of nature itself. He describes how, after death, the soul reflects upon the life just lived. In that moment of review, the spirit sees clearly what it has done, both good and ill. The veils of illusion fall away, and we see ourselves as we truly are. It is from this reflection that the soul begins to shape its next life. According to Heindel, the conditions of our future birth are not assigned by an external judge, but arise naturally from what we have become. The soul itself, in cooperation with greater spiritual intelligences, prepares the circumstances best suited to its growth, whether that be a life of wealth or poverty, of health or illness, of joy or struggle. Heindel emphasizes that this is done out of love for the evolving spirit that we are. Every limitation, every sorrow is an opportunity to learn something that we failed to learn before. He also reveals that, as we return again and again to Earth, we meet the same souls over and over in different roles. The enemy of one life may return as a friend in another. The parent of today may have been our child in centuries past. In this vast web of relationships, we work out our debts of love and strife until all are balanced and healed. When you realize this, Heindel says, you begin to see the people around you differently. You start to recognize that every relationship carries hidden meaning, echoes of past lives, and opportunities for growth. Those who challenge us most may be the very souls we have wronged, returning to teach us forgiveness. Those who uplift us may be the ones we once helped, now extending kindness in return. This vision transforms life. The blind forces of fate dissolve in the light of understanding, and what seemed like meaningless suffering becomes a part of a sacred process of awakening. And in this realization comes peace, not the peace of escape, but the peace of deep knowing. The knowing that no effort is wasted, no tear is unseen. Heindel calls us to live consciously in light of these laws, to take up the task of shaping our future lives with the same care we might give to planting a garden that we ourselves will one day harvest. He reminds us that this world is a place where the spirit is slowly refined through experience, and though the lessons are sometimes painful, they are never pointless. As this understanding settles into the heart, the soul begins to awaken from its long slumber. You start to walk through life with open eyes, recognizing the hidden currents that guide all things. You find a courage that does not waver, even in the face of suffering, because you know it has meaning. You find a patience that does not falter, because you see that justice is not delayed, it is simply unfolding in its time. And above all, you find a sense of quiet purpose, a knowing that you are here now for a reason, part of a vast story that you yourself are writing. This is the gift of Heindel's message, not an escape from life, but a deeper entrance into it. An invitation to wake up and walk the path of conscious evolution, with eyes turned toward the light. And in that moment, you begin to wake up, not to some dream beyond this world, but to the deeper reality that has always been with you, waiting for you to see. For there are truths, ancient and profound, that once known, stir something deep within us, something that has been sleeping for lifetimes. Heindel gives us a gentle yet firm reminder that humanity is far more than it appears. We are not isolated fragments wandering a purposeless world. Instead, we are bound to God by immutable laws, woven into the very fabric of spirit itself. And it is by understanding these laws that we begin to awaken, not merely to ideas, but to our place within a living universe. The first great truth he shares is that God is immanent. God is not faraway creator who winds up the universe like a clock and then walks away. No, Heindel tells us that God is within all things, within us. The same spirit that moves the stars burns quietly in our hearts. He calls God an indwelling presence in every atom of the universe. And when you begin to understand that, truly understand it, something shifts. You no longer feel as though life is happening to you. You realize that life is happening through you. That spark of God within is always present, quietly shaping the currents of our existence. Heindel explains that this relation of man to God is not accidental. The universe operates by laws that are unchanging and exact. These are not laws written on paper, but laws that govern the growth of a tree, the motion of the planets, and the unfolding of our own consciousness. Laws that once glimpsed reveal to us the great cosmic plan, an unfolding purpose to which we belong. Man is both a creator and created. In the deepest sense, we are being shaped by divine forces, but we are also shaping ourselves in return. As Heindel writes, man is an evolving God. This is not a metaphor, he means it quite literally. And if that truth feels too grand, too far beyond what we have been taught to believe about ourselves, that is because most of us are still asleep to this reality. But Heindel is clear, awakening is possible. And that awakening begins when we realize that every action, every thought, every moment of our lives is governed by the law of cause and effect. What we do, how we think, and what we feel ripple outward into the world and return to us, not as punishment or reward, but as a necessary correction in the great balancing act of the universe. He speaks of the law of consequence, the Rosicrucian understanding of what many call karma, but Heindel takes this beyond mere moralistic notions of good and evil. He shows how every cause has its effect, and every effect flows from a cause, all governed by divine justice that holds no malice, only balance. And here, something extraordinary is revealed. You see, according to Heindel, God never intervenes to suspend these laws. There are no miracles in the sense of breaking the natural order. Instead, miracles, as we perceive them, are the result of laws operating from higher planes, laws we simply do not yet understand. And so, when we grasp that our life is governed by law, we also grasp that we hold within ourselves the power to shape our destiny. Think about that. The idea that your thoughts, your choices, and your will are not drifting in chaos, but are instruments by which you work upon yourself and the world. This is the foundation of spiritual awakening. But Heindel does not stop there. He warns us that without understanding these laws, humanity remains a child, tossed by the waves of circumstance, seeing only chaos where there is actually perfect order. And so the goal of our evolution is to reach that understanding, to see the patterns, the reasons, and to align ourselves with them. Heindel introduces us to a profound view of God as both law and love. Not love in the sentimental sense, but love as the force that holds the universe together. Love that allows us to make mistakes so that we may learn. Love that does not shield us from consequence, but trusts us to grow through them. To truly awaken, Heindel says, is to realize that the universe is not hostile, nor is it indifferent. It is alive, responsive, and governed by a wisdom far beyond our fleeting understanding. And when we live in harmony with that wisdom, we cease struggling against the current of life. We begin to flow with it, and in that flow, we find peace. Heindel also speaks of man's responsibility as a spiritual being. Because if we are evolving gods, if we are sparks of the divine, then our duty is not merely to ourselves, but to the whole cosmos. Our every thought and deed sends out ripples that affect not just us, but the entire spiritual fabric of existence. This realization, Heindel says, is what wakes us from the slumber of materialism, the false belief that we are isolated and powerless. And perhaps one of the most beautiful insights he shares is that God evolves through man. As strange as it may seem, the divine itself grows and learns as we grow and learn. The Spirit of God expresses itself through us, and as we strive toward higher understanding, God is enriched through our experiences. Heindel makes it clear that this awakening is not the privilege of a few mystics or saints, but the destiny of all human beings. Every soul, no matter how lost or broken, carries the divine spark and is destined to awaken to it, whether in this life or another. So what does it mean truly to wake up in the Rosicrucian sense? It means seeing that you are bound to God by eternal laws, that your life has purpose, and that every challenge, every joy, every sorrow is part of your unfolding. It means accepting that you are an agent of creation, and that the universe responds to you as much as you respond to it. And perhaps most importantly, waking up means knowing you are never alone. For as Heindel says, God is within every atom of your being, always near, always guiding, always present in the silent language of the laws that shape your life. So when the world feels heavy, when you feel as though you are lost in a storm of chaos, remember, there is order, there is meaning, there is a path, and it begins when you open your eyes to these truths. If you find yourself wondering whether there is more to life than what you see, know that there is, and the path begins when you seek to understand these eternal laws that have shaped you since before you were born. And as you walk that path, as you begin to wake up, you will discover that Heindel saw so clearly that you are part of God and God is part of you, and there has never been a moment when this was not true. But there is a quiet order that shapes our lives, though we so often move through the world unaware, and yet few ever pause to wonder what lies behind this great unfolding, what deep laws guide our journey through existence. For Heindel, evolution is not merely about bodies changing form over time. It is not just the slow adaptation of creatures to their environments. No, evolution, as the Rosicrucians understand it, is the unfolding of spirit itself, the great and solemn journey of the divine spark as it descends into matter and rises again, transformed by experience. Heindel explains that before this journey even begins, there exists what he calls the virgin spirit, a spark of the divine, an awakened, pure but unconscious. Imagine a seed, not yet sprouted, filled with all the potential of the mighty tree, but still sleeping in darkness. This virgin spirit is what we are in our deepest essence, before we have passed through the fires of experience. And the purpose of evolution? To awaken that spirit, to bring it out of darkness and into light, to transform unconscious divinity into conscious godhood. But how does this awakening occur? Here Heindel lays out what few have dared to describe, a vision of evolution that spans not only ages but worlds and planes of existence. We are travelers, he says, on a long pilgrimage through 7 great worlds and 5 mighty periods of manifestation. These are not merely planets or places in space, but vast states of being, each vibrating at different levels of reality, from the densest matter to the most rarefied spirit. In our current stage, we are in the 4th of these periods, known as the Earth period. But before we reached here, we passed through 3 other cosmic phases, stages of becoming, where we slowly built the vehicles we now inhabit. First the dense body, then the vital body, and later the desire body. Each of these sheaths of consciousness was formed in turn, shaped by the needs of the soul to gather experience, to learn, to grow. And when Heindel speaks of law, he does not mean merely rules to follow or commandments to obey. He speaks of cosmic principles that guide every moment of our becoming, rhythms and currents within which our souls evolve as naturally as rivers follow the course of the land. Once we recognize these laws, something extraordinary begins to happen. We stop seeing life as chaos. The pain, the loss, the struggle, they begin to fall into place, not as meaningless suffering, but as part of a larger tapestry woven for our awakening. We begin to see that evolution is not only about the survival of the strongest, but about the unfolding of consciousness itself. Every trial we pass through, every joy we savor, every sorrow we endure, are all tools of shaping. Heindel describes how in these successive worlds our spirit descends deeper and deeper into matter, gathering experience as a diver might plunge into the depths of the sea to find hidden pearls. Yet, the journey is not meant to be a permanent entanglement. The goal is not to be trapped in matter forever, but to rise again, bearing the wisdom and strength earned through the struggle. And here lies one of the most beautiful truths that Heindel shares, the law of rebirth and the law of cause and effect, known also as karma. These laws are the engines of evolution, The law of cause and effect ensures that nothing in the universe happens by chance, that every action we take, every word we speak, every thought we harbor, sets into motion a ripple that returns to us in time, to teach, to balance, to guide. And the law of rebirth? It offers us time, the great mercy of the universe. Time to learn, time to grow, time to awaken. For in a single lifetime, how much can we truly grasp? But over many lives, shaped again and again by our own deeds, we begin to see the patterns. We begin to wake up. Heindel points out that the journey of evolution is not aimless wandering, but an orderly ascent. And the greatest secret? That behind this entire process stands a divine intelligence, a loving wisdom, shaping the way. Our evolution is not merely about gaining knowledge, though knowledge is part of it. It is about growing love, compassion, and wisdom. It is about learning to see beyond appearances to the spirit that lives within all things. Heindel also describes how, as we evolve, our senses expand. In these early stages, we are limited to what our eyes can see and ears can hear. But there are deeper senses, spiritual senses, waiting to awaken. Senses that will one day let us perceive the inner worlds, the higher realms from which we came, and to which we will return. Knowing this, a certain calm can enter the heart, for even when life feels heavy, even when we feel lost, the truth remains. We are on a guided path, and nothing that happens to us is outside of the great laws of evolution. Once you know these laws, you begin waking up because you realize that you are not a victim of fate, nor merely a fleeting accident in a meaningless universe. And as this awareness grows, life takes on a different hue. The mundane becomes sacred. The painful becomes meaningful. The future becomes a promise. Heindel tells us that at the end of this long journey, when the spirit has gathered all the experiences it needs, it will rise, no longer a sleeping spark, but a conscious God, radiant, wise, and filled with love. So what does it mean to wake up from a Rosicrucian perspective? It means to recognize that you are a spirit on a journey, and that everything you encounter is part of that sacred unfolding. It means to see yourself not as a mere body, but as an eternal soul in the making. And perhaps most important of all, it means to trust the process, even when you do not yet see the full picture. As Heindel so beautifully reveals, to know these laws is to see that you belong to the universe, and that the universe itself works for your growth in ways far beyond what you can now imagine. But have you ever wondered why life seems to pull us forward, whether we like it or not? As though something greater, something wiser is urging us onward. You see, Heindel tells us that evolution is not a random or chaotic thing. It is not merely the survival of the fittest, nor is it a mechanical climb up some invisible ladder. Instead, it is a carefully guided process, a spiritual unfolding, orchestrated by higher beings who oversee the growth of all creation. From the tiniest atom to the grandest human soul, everything is on this journey. Everything is learning, growing, evolving. But here is the secret Heindel wants us to grasp. The moment we recognize that our lives are part of this cosmic plan, that is the moment we begin to truly wake up. No longer are we merely drifting through life's events. We begin to see them for what they are, stepping stones in a vast spiritual journey that spans lifetimes. Heindel describes how long before humanity took its first breath on this earth, we were already traveling along this path of evolution. The human spirit, as he writes, has moved through countless phases, through mineral, plant, and animal stages, gathering experience, refining its consciousness, slowly rising toward the fullness of what it is destined to be. Think about that for a moment. Before you ever walked on this earth, before you first looked at the stars and wondered who you are, your spirit had already been traveling, learning, growing. You are not a mere accident. You are part of an ancient and sacred unfolding, and this unfolding is not left to chance. Heindel speaks of the creative hierarchies, great spiritual beings far beyond human comprehension, who guide and shape the evolution of all life. These are not vague ideas, but real forces of wisdom and love that watch over the world's development. They work tirelessly, he says, to help us ascend, to help us become more conscious, more wise, more loving. But why, you might wonder, do we not see them? Why does life feel so harsh, so confusing at times? Because, Heindel explains, we are still in the middle of the path. And part of our growth requires that we struggle, that we choose, that we awaken through effort. And yet, though invisible, their influence is there, guiding, nudging, calling us to wake up. Heindel also reveals that evolution is not just about physical change, not merely about bodies or environments. Far deeper, it is the evolution of consciousness. The path, as he shares, moves us from a state where we are unconscious of the divine world toward a future where we will see and know our spiritual nature fully, where we will become co-creators with the divine itself. This is the goal: to awaken, to become aware, to become wise and compassionate beings who shape reality in harmony with cosmic law. Heindel writes that in the far future, humanity will rise to heights beyond anything we can imagine, achieving powers of creation and understanding that now lie dormant within us. To reach that, we must walk the path. We must evolve, not only in body but in soul and spirit. And this is where a great mystery is revealed. Suffering and struggle are not punishments. They are tools of growth. In fact, Heindel teaches that pain is one of the greatest teachers in life. For it is when we suffer that we begin to look deeper, to ask why, to seek the meaning behind our experiences. Without struggle, without effort, we would never grow. So when you suffer, when life feels hard, know this: you are not abandoned. You are not lost. You are being shaped. You are being taught. Every trial, every loss, every challenge is a hidden lesson, preparing you for the next step on your spiritual journey. But there is more. Heindel emphasizes that although evolution is a law, although it is a force that drives all beings, humanity has reached a point where we can begin to cooperate with it consciously. This is the great turning point. Unlike the minerals, the plants, or the animals, we have the power to choose. We can choose to align ourselves with the higher path. We can choose to awaken, to work with the great spiritual forces, rather than against them. And this is the Rosicrucian invitation to become conscious co-workers in the great plan of evolution, to no longer stumble blindly, but to walk the path with eyes wide open, to see every day as a chance to grow, to learn, to love. Heindel says that when we begin to understand these laws, we start to live differently. We become more patient with ourselves, with others, and with life. We begin to trust that everything has its place, its purpose, even the painful moments. We become seekers of truth, because we know there is meaning behind every experience. And as we walk this path, awakening to the deeper laws that guide our lives, something in us changes. We begin to see through the illusions of the world, the chasing of pleasure, the fear of loss, and instead, we find a deeper peace, a quiet strength that carries us forward. Because now we know we are eternal spirits on a sacred journey home. Heindel calls us to remember that evolution will continue, with or without our cooperation. But when we choose to awaken, when we choose to walk the path with awareness, we grow faster, deeper, wiser. We become conscious builders of our own destiny, and perhaps most beautiful of all, we become lights for others, helping them find their way, as we have found ours. So if you are listening to this now, if you are wondering why life feels as it does, if you are longing to find meaning in the chaos of the world, know this: you are on a path, an ancient path of evolution, guided by forces of immense love and wisdom. And now that you know this, you are beginning to wake up. Each moment is a step on that path. Every challenge is a lesson designed to help you rise, and as you walk forward guided by these laws, you will find that you are never truly alone. For behind the scenes of life, the great ones watch and guide, waiting for the moment when we choose to see, when we choose to grow, when we choose to awaken. So let this be that moment for you. Walk forward now in trust and courage. You are on the path. You are waking up, and the universe itself is walking with you. But what if I told you that everything, every challenge, every joy, every sorrow, has been woven into the grand tapestry of existence with precision beyond imagination? That behind all the shifting scenes of life, invisible laws are quietly at work, guiding not only the world outside of you, but the very soul within you. You see, Heindel does not present life as an accident, nor does he speak of human beings as mere wanderers through a chaotic universe. From this view, we are part of a vast evolutionary design, a design that unfolds through carefully governed laws and hierarchies. And once you glimpse this, something inside begins to stir. Heindel speaks of evolution not as a simple story of physical change, but as a process deeply rooted in consciousness. Everything evolves, yes, but what evolves most of all is the soul. But how, and by whose hands? Heindel lays bare the truth that this grand evolutionary work is carried out through the cooperation of vast spiritual beings, hierarchies beyond our ordinary senses, who guide every stage of our unfolding, even when we are unaware. From the shaping of our physical forms to the delicate weaving of our inner faculties, these beings labor in silence, ensuring that no step of growth is ever truly random. When we speak of laws in this sense, Heindel points to something far deeper than earthly laws of nature. These are spiritual laws of evolution, governing how spirit descends into matter, and how it shall one day ascend again, refined, awakened, and conscious. He tells us that the process of evolution is divided into 7 great periods, vast spans of time, during which the spirit gains experience in different worlds of existence. And here, you begin to sense the magnitude of what's taking place. Life is not a brief flicker between birth and death. It is a journey that spans eons, carried forward by invisible rhythms. As Heindel explains, before the earth as we know it ever existed, there were prior worlds, phases of existence where beings like us were learning, growing, becoming. Each of these periods served as a classroom for the spirit, where consciousness was shaped in ways we now barely remember. But why does this matter to you, here and now? Because, as Heindel makes clear, even now in this present Earth period, you are part of that same journey. You are a being caught up in that long process of awakening, where what you think of as your ordinary life is in truth an unfolding of cosmic lessons. And knowing this, knowing that evolution is not random but purposeful, governed by great spiritual intelligences, awakens something profound. You begin to see that even the struggles of life, even the moments that feel senseless, are parts of a much larger story. Heindel also tells us something else, something that changes how we see ourselves and each other. Not all beings evolve at the same pace. Within this evolutionary system, some have gone ahead, those great spiritual hierarchies, the archangels and lords of mind, and they now serve as guides to those who come after. And likewise, there are beings who trail behind, still working through lessons we may already have passed. What does this mean? It means that life is a living ladder, a hierarchy where beings rise, and as they do, they help lift others. You are not alone in your journey. You are part of a vast family of spirits, some far wiser, some still learning, and all of us bound together by the threads of evolution. But Heindel does not paint this as a process that happens to us passively. Here is where a deeper secret lies, one that makes you begin to truly wake up. While the early stages of evolution were largely shaped for us by the higher beings, guiding us as a parent would guide a child, there comes a point when the spirit is called to step forward, a moment when you, as an individual, must begin to take part in your own evolution, consciously. And it is in this shift, from unconscious growth to conscious self-development, that awakening truly begins. Once you know these spiritual laws, that evolution has meaning, that every joy and sorrow are shaping the soul, that higher beings labor to lift you, you begin to look upon life with new eyes. You begin to see that within every difficulty lies an opportunity to grow, to refine, to awaken those sleeping faculties within you. And more than this, Heindel reveals that, through evolution, the spirit learns to master matter. In the early stages, the spirit is bound, even weighed down by the physical body, like a bird caught in a cage. But as evolution proceeds, and as we engage consciously in this work, we learn to rise above matter, to command it, rather than be ruled by it. Heindel describes this as the work of gaining mastery over form, so that the spirit can one day shine forth in its full glory, free, radiant, and aware. Now think of what this means for you, here, in this moment. You are not merely passing time on this earth. You are in the midst of a great work, a work that has been going on since before time as we know it began. Every thought you think, every action you take, every lesson learned is part of this slow, steady ascent. And as Heindel says, when you understand these laws, you begin to participate in your own evolution, not as a puppet of fate, but as a conscious being, awakening to its purpose. The more you know of these truths, the more life itself transforms before your eyes. No longer does suffering seem pointless, no longer does joy seem fleeting. You realize that all of it, every rise, every fall, is a step upon the path of the spirit, a movement within the greater music of the cosmos. And here lies perhaps the most profound secret Heindel shares, that evolution is the means by which spirit and matter, seemingly so distant, are brought into harmony. Through this long process, the spirit learns to wield matter as its instrument, and matter itself is spiritualized. So when you look out at the world, the stones, the trees, the stars, you are witnessing a process in motion, matter rising towards spirit, spirit descending into matter, until at last they meet in perfect union. As you sit with these truths, something deep within begins to stir. A memory, perhaps, of who and what you truly are. A spirit on an ancient journey, shaped by laws greater than the mind can grasp, but known to the soul in its depths. So when you walk through life's storms, remember, you are not drifting aimlessly, and those silent laws known to the wise are shaping you into something more radiant than you can yet imagine. And now, perhaps as you hear these words, you are beginning to wake up. Yet, the universe is governed by inviolable spiritual laws, and among them is the law of evolution, not merely the body, but of consciousness as well. We are all evolving, he says, but not equally. Some souls, stragglers as Heindel calls them, have lagged behind. Others, newcomers, are freshly arrived from other lines of evolution. Both of these groups share a common trait. They do not yet fully fit within the stream of human development as we know it. And this, he suggests, explains much of what we see around us, why some seem out of place in this world, while others seem inexplicably advanced. Heindel insists the Earth is a school, and like any school, there are students at different levels. Some are racing ahead, ready for the next great lessons of life. Others are repeating old lessons they failed to grasp before, and still others are joining us from distant classrooms in the great cosmic university. Newcomers, whose eyes are still adjusting to the light of this human experience. Heindel describes the stragglers as those who began the human journey with us, but, through choice, ignorance, or resistance, have failed to unfold their latent spiritual capacities. These souls, he says, are now behind the wave of evolution that carries most of us forward. And when we think about it, how many people have we encountered who seem somehow stuck, locked in patterns of thought or behavior that lead nowhere? People whose inner light seems dimmed, as though life's lessons have not yet stirred them to wakefulness. Heindel would tell us these are the stragglers, not condemned but delayed, not broken but incomplete, and because evolution is merciful, they are not cast aside, but they must now work harder, struggle more deeply to catch the evolutionary tide they once resisted. He writes that such souls may, in future planetary cycles, have to find themselves placed in conditions better suited to their slower growth, perhaps not even on this earth, but elsewhere, where they can continue their education at the proper pace. And then there are the newcomers, souls who have reached humanity by a different path, beings who have evolved along other streams, perhaps even from other worlds, and are now beginning their human experience. Heindel suggests that these souls often appear as the simple-minded, the gentle but naive, those who do not yet grasp the complexity of human life. Yet he insists we should not judge them, for though their understanding may seem limited now, they are young in this stage of evolution, and one day, perhaps in far-off ages, they will surpass even us, just as younger generations often surpass their elders. What strikes the heart is Heindel's compassionate view of these souls. Rather than condemning them for their limitations, he invites us to see them as fellow travelers on a long road, travelers who have simply joined the path later than others. But the deeper truth Heindel reveals is that when we know these laws, when we recognize the existence of stragglers and newcomers, we begin to wake up, not only to our own spiritual journey, but to the intricate web of life that connects us to all souls, because suddenly the judgments we hold about others, why is this person so blind? Why does that person seem so different? Begin to dissolve. In their place comes understanding, and from understanding, compassion. Knowing these laws, we see that each soul is exactly where it needs to be for its growth, and that realization softens the heart. Heindel emphasizes that the path of evolution is long and vast, spanning not merely lifetimes but entire planetary cycles. Some souls may leap ahead, burning with a desire to know and grow. Others may hesitate, fearful of what they might become. Still, others may wander in from different shores, new to the experience of human existence itself. Yet, all are embraced by the same grand law. All are guided by the same silent wisdom that governs the stars and the atoms alike. In this vision, life takes on a new meaning. The struggles of today, the challenges of our own growth, and the confusion we sometimes feel about the people around us. All of these are part of a larger unfolding, an ancient and sacred story in which each of us plays a part. And so, when we begin to know these laws, we awaken, not in a flash of sudden enlightenment, but in the quiet, steady realization that we are woven into something far greater than ourselves. We begin to see that evolution is not a race. It is a pilgrimage. Each soul walks its own path, at its own pace. Some stride ahead, others pause to rest, and some, the newcomers, are just beginning to step onto the road. And perhaps, as we contemplate Heindel's vision, we might begin to release some of the impatience we hold with ourselves and with others. Perhaps we can let go of the expectation that we, or anyone else, should be further along than we are. Because when we know these laws, we see that everything is unfolding as it should, even when it feels chaotic, even when it seems unfair. And so the next time we meet someone who struggles to understand, who seems lost or far behind, let us remember Heindel's words. Let us remember that they too are souls in evolution, perhaps stragglers, perhaps newcomers, but souls nonetheless, walking their own sacred journey. And as for ourselves, when we feel behind, when we wonder if we are stragglers in our own right, let us hold fast to the deeper truth that every effort to grow, every moment of insight draws us closer to the light. Because once you know these laws, once you see that the soul's past is vast, intricate, and merciful, you cannot help but begin waking up. Waking up to your own purpose, waking up to the mystery of others, and waking up to the grand design that holds us all. And for those who begin to perceive them, a quiet awakening begins. Heindel opens a window into this moment through his teachings on the Earth period, a grand and mysterious epoch of evolution. What are these laws, and why is the Earth period so vital to our understanding? To begin, Heindel tells us that we are living now in the fourth period of our evolutionary journey, the Earth period, which follows after the Saturn, Sun and Moon periods. Yet, this is not merely a phase in geological time, it is in truth a carefully guided step in the evolution of spirit and form, of consciousness and body, where humanity is being shaped, layer by layer, through deep spiritual processes. The Earth period is where the dense physical body, the very vehicle through which we act and think, becomes fully developed. But as Heindel carefully explains, the focus is not merely on the body itself. This is the time when the ego, the higher spiritual essence of each human being, takes control of that body, learning to use it as a tool for experience and growth. Heindel teaches that the entire purpose of this cosmic stage is to enable the spirit to gain mastery over matter. Spirit descending into form, wrestling with its limitations, learning through joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain. The seeming randomness of life, he reveals, is anything but. Every struggle and triumph is part of a larger design to awaken the sleeping faculties within us. And this is where the first of these laws begins to reveal itself, the law of consequence, sometimes called the law of cause and effect. In the Earth period, this law comes into sharp focus because humanity is now conscious enough to create causes and experience their effects. We are no longer blindly pushed by cosmic forces, we act and the universe responds. To know this law is to awaken to the understanding that nothing happens to us by chance. Every joy and every sorrow has roots in our past actions. Heindel does not speak of this law as a cold decree of fate, but as a profound moral teacher, guiding us to take responsibility for our lives. Once we understand that our present is shaped by our own past deeds, and that our future will unfold from today's choices, we begin to wake up. But Heindel does not stop there. The Earth period is also governed by the law of rebirth, for how else could we, as immortal spirits, learn all the lessons necessary for divine wisdom? A single lifetime is too short. Thus, we return, life after life, to continue the work of shaping our character, perfecting our faculties, and gaining deeper insight into the mysteries of existence. Heindel emphasizes that this is not mere repetition, not an endless cycle without meaning. Each life is carefully orchestrated by higher beings, the so-called creative hierarchies, to give us precisely what we need to grow. Through this law, we see that the soul is on a journey, and that every life brings it closer to the light. As we begin to comprehend the laws of consequence and rebirth, something profound happens. We begin to see order where before we saw only disorder. We recognize that we are not victims of a harsh world, but students in a cosmic school. Every relationship, every event, every trial and every triumph is a lesson carefully prepared for us by ourselves under divine guidance. But how does this connect to waking up? Because Heindel insists that once we know these laws, we can no longer live in ignorance. We see the hidden threads that bind all life together, and with that vision comes both freedom and responsibility. Yet the Earth period also reveals deeper mysteries, the evolution of consciousness itself. Heindel explains that humanity's task now is not merely to survive, but to develop the mind, that which allows us to reason, to understand, and to will. The mind, he says, is the latest and most important addition to our being. It is the bridge between spirit and body, and through it, we are meant to become co-creators in the universe. But herein lies a struggle, for as the mind awakens, it also confronts the pull of the lower nature, the instincts and desires rooted in the physical and vital bodies. This, Heindel tells us, is the greatest battle of the Earth period, the battle between the higher self, striving toward wisdom and compassion, and the lower self, chained to selfishness and material pleasure. To understand this struggle is to grasp another great law of this period, the law of growth through struggle. Heindel makes clear that spiritual growth does not happen in ease. It is only by facing challenges that the soul develops strength and understanding. Like the seed that must break through the earth to reach the sun, the soul must wrestle with darkness to find the light. And yet, as daunting as this may sound, Heindel offers hope, for the higher powers guiding evolution have not abandoned us. He speaks of the archangels and the angels, beings of profound wisdom and love who labor invisibly to assist humanity. Through their work, the rhythms of nature, the cycles of life, and even our innermost impulses are shaped and directed toward our eventual awakening. Thus, when we open our eyes to these laws, when we see that every part of life is infused with meaning and purpose, and that there are unseen helpers working on our behalf, a deep calm begins to settle in the heart. The fear of the unknown fades. We are part of something vast, ancient and beautiful, a cosmic journey unfolding according to divine law. Perhaps what is most humbling in Heindel's vision of the Earth period is the realization that the very struggles we face are signs that we are ready to grow. Each obstacle is not a punishment but an opportunity, crafted by the wisdom of the universe to awaken hidden strengths within us. And so, Heindel leaves us with an unspoken invitation to begin living consciously within these laws, to choose our actions with the understanding that they ripple through time and space, to accept our challenges as teachers, and to know that as we do, we step into the stream of evolution as active participants, no longer carried along unconsciously but awake, aware, and purposeful. It is in this awakening that true peace lies, not in the absence of struggle, but in the knowledge that all things work together toward the great goal of spiritual perfection. So if you have ever felt lost, as though life were a series of random trials, know that what Heindel reveals in the Earth period is that there is a path, and you are on it. And once you begin to see that, you are no longer the same. You begin to wake up. You begin to live, as Heindel would say, as a conscious co-worker with the divine plan. And perhaps that is the greatest secret of all, that by learning these laws, you do not escape life, you step into it, fully and bravely, knowing that each step forward is part of your soul's majestic unfolding. And when we learn these laws, when we truly understand them, we begin to wake up, not merely to new information, but to a living relationship with the universe itself. Heindel begins with a profound statement. The universe is not a random scattering of matter, nor a mechanical system without purpose. Rather, it is the expression of spiritual intelligences at work over immense cycles of time. According to Heindel, the solar system is a living being, born of a great creative impulse, an archetypal force that moves through spirit into manifestation. And so the first law we are introduced to is the law of involution and evolution. Involution is the process by which spirit descends into matter. Evolution, by contrast, is the ascent of spirit back through matter, having gained experience. Our solar system was not simply created at a single moment in time, but is part of an ongoing cycle of descent and ascent. Spirit into form, and form back into spirit. To know this law is to understand that nothing is wasted. Every struggle, every triumph, and sorrow becomes part of this great unfolding, a process by which consciousness grows. As Heindel writes, all that now is, has been, and will be, is involved in one continuous chain of causes and effects. This means our lives are not isolated events, but threads woven into a vast tapestry. And when we awaken to this view, life takes on a deeper meaning. Heindel then leads us into the mystery of the great creative hierarchies, those spiritual beings who guide and shape the evolution of worlds. Long before the Earth as we know it existed, these hierarchies labored in spheres of existence far beyond our own, gradually condensing spirit into the denser forms we now see in the material world. The solar system, he says, is the offspring of these vast intelligences. Its planets, its suns, and even the beings that walk upon them are the result of their continual work. What we call nature is not blind. It is the garment woven by these great builders. To know this, to truly grasp that we are surrounded and upheld by intelligences vaster than our comprehension, is to begin waking up from the illusion of separation. And here, Heindel describes a second great law, the law of periodicity. All things move in cycles. Worlds are born, they grow, they decay and pass away, only to be reborn in a higher form. This rhythmic breathing of the cosmos, this pulse of life and death, is as true for us as for the stars. Our Earth itself has gone through prior incarnations, what Heindel calls world periods, during which it existed in other subtler forms before becoming what it is today. From the dense matter of today, future forms will also arise. And so we see there is nothing final about the world as we know it. Just as we evolve, so does the Earth, and the solar system, and all life within it. Once we know this, we awaken to patience, to an understanding that growth takes time, and that behind every ending lies a new beginning. But Heindel takes us deeper still. He speaks of the sun, not merely as a ball of burning gas, but as the heart and brain of the solar system. According to Heindel, the sun is a living spiritual being, and from it flows the vitality that sustains all life. He tells us that when the sun sends its light and warmth to the planets, it is giving of itself, spiritually and physically. This is not a poetic metaphor, it is a literal truth in Heindel's view. The sun, he writes, is the visible vehicle of the highest spiritual beings connected with our system. To awaken to this law is to realize that we are not cut off from cosmic life. Every breath, every heartbeat is sustained by the life of the sun. As above, so below. The patterns that govern the stars govern us. Our bodies, our minds, our very souls are microcosms of the larger universe. The planets move in their great orbits, and within us, thoughts and feelings revolve around our inner center. The same laws that keep the Earth in motion around the sun also govern the cycles of our lives: birth, growth, decay, and renewal. Once we know this, we no longer see ourselves as strangers in a vast and indifferent cosmos. We are part of it, children of the stars, moving with them in the eternal dance of spirit and matter. And perhaps most profound of all is the understanding that our destiny is not bound to this earth alone. Heindel writes that our spiritual evolution will one day carry us beyond this planet, beyond even this solar system, as we move upward in consciousness. We are in the midst of a great journey, from ignorance to wisdom, from bondage in matter to liberation in spirit. He tells us, the solar system is the visible expression of a great and sublime intelligence, and man is part of that intelligence, to be evolved to higher and higher degrees of perfection. Knowing this awakens us to hope, to purpose, and to reverence for the life all around us. And so, if you've ever felt lost, adrift in a world that seems chaotic and without meaning, know that you are part of a greater pattern. Your life has a place in the cosmic design. The struggles you face are not in vain. They are the chisels that carve the soul, shaping it for higher worlds to come. The Rosicrucian wisdom, as Heindel presents it, is not merely a theory of the stars, but a call to awaken, to see that we are beings on a journey through worlds, guided by laws that are wise and loving beyond our knowing. When we begin to understand these laws of involution and evolution, of periodicity, of correspondence, of spiritual hierarchy, we begin to wake up to the realization that the universe is alive with meaning, and we are participants in its unfolding story. And perhaps when you next look up to the sky and see the sun, or the stars beyond, you will see them not merely as distant lights, but as the visible signs of a living spiritual reality, one that has shaped you and continues to guide you even now. So if this message speaks to something deep within you, if it stirs a quiet recognition, know that this is your journey too. The same cosmic forces that shaped the stars are shaping you, calling you toward your higher self.